In the 1940s, the human heart was considered untouchable. Any attempt to cut into it was seen as a guaranteed death sentence, a strict surgical taboo that no doctor dared to cross. This meant that infants born with severe cardiac defects were out of reach. In conditions like blue baby syndrome, an anatomical flaw prevents oxygen from reaching the bloodstream. The infants slowly suffocate, leaving doctors entirely powerless to help. Yet inside a Johns Hopkins operating room, the hospital's lead surgeon is attempting a procedure never before performed on a human heart. But right before he makes the critical incision, he pauses. He looks over his shoulder for guidance. Standing on a small step stool behind him is an African-American man in a simple white lab coat, Vivien Thomas. Thomas holds no medical degree. He isn't legally recognized as a physician. But the most prestigious surgeon in America refuses to proceed without his explicit direction. The first attempt to repair a congenital heart defect rested on the shoulders of a man whom society legally barred from practicing medicine. A decade earlier, Thomas had a singular goal. His scientific aptitude drove him to save every penny he earned toward medical school tuition. Then the Great Depression hit. The economic collapse completely wiped out his savings, and with them, his path to a formal medical degree. Needing a way to survive, he took a low-paying position as a laboratory assistant at Johns Hopkins University. Inside those walls, Thomas faced a rigid professional divide. He was conducting high-level surgical research, but because of his race and lack of credentials, he was banned from walking through the hospital's front doors. While Thomas spent his days pioneering new surgical techniques, the hospital's payroll department continued to classify him and pay him as a janitor. The primary challenge was tetralogy of Fallot, the specific defect causing blue baby syndrome. Because no one understood the condition, Thomas first recreated it in lab models to study the blood flow. By analyzing this, he designed a bypass redirecting flow to the lungs, allowing oxygen to reach the blood. Since standard surgical tools were too large for an infant's heart, Thomas custom-engineered a set of miniature instruments to perform the work. Using those tiny tools, he practiced the microvascular suturing hundreds of times in the lab, developing a level of precision that no other surgeon at the university could match. While the medical establishment debated the theory of heart repair, a lab assistant used his own hands to build the tools and the technique that would make it a reality. Back in the operating room, Thomas quietly guides the lead surgeon through the micro-incisions he perfected in the lab. As the final clamp is released, the infant's skin suddenly turns from blue to pink. It was physical proof oxygenated blood was finally flowing. The success was lauded worldwide. For the first time, physicians had proof that the heart was no longer an unreachable organ. However, when the procedure was published in medical journals, the name of the man who perfected the bypass was nowhere to be found. The technique went on to save thousands of children, but for years, the man who engineered it remained a shadow in the official records. Thomas remained at Hopkins for decades, training the next generation of prominent heart surgeons. Eventually, the surgeons he mentored demanded that his role be formally recognized by the university. In 1976, Thomas was awarded an honorary doctorate, and his portrait was hung in the university's main hall, alongside the doctors he had taught. Today, millions of people survive cardiac defects because of the techniques developed by a man who never once held the title of doctor.